This wasn't supposed to happen. This was never supposed to break. The carefully polished fairy tale, built on silence, strategy, and surgical control, has started to crack in a way that feels irreversible. Because behind the smiles, behind the glossy interviews, behind the billion-dollar narrative, something isn't adding up. And the deeper you look, the louder the silence becomes. For decades, the royal machine followed one sacred rule: never complain, never explain. It was cold, it was calculated, and it worked. But when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped away, they didn't just walk out of a palace, they detonated the system. They replaced quiet dignity with something far more modern: a media fortress. A PR empire so controlled, so curated, that every word, every pause, every look was engineered. And for a while, it worked flawlessly. Critics talked, rumors spread, former friends whispered. But the response? Silence. A strategic, suffocating silence. Let the noise die. Let the rumors starve. That was the game. That was the power. Until suddenly the silence snapped. Because now the tone has changed. Completely. Legal threats, public statements, sharp, aggressive pushback, the kind that doesn't feel calm, doesn't feel confident. It feels reactive. And here's the part that should make you pause. Look closely at what they fight and what they don't. Because the truth, it's hiding in that gap. To understand this shift, you have to rewind. Back to when one name started echoing louder than the rest: Tom Bower. Not a gossip blogger, not a tabloid hack, a man known for dissecting powerful figures with surgical precision. When his book Revenge dropped, it didn't just make noise, it mapped a pattern. Social climbing, strategic connections, a rise that didn't look accidental. And the response? Silence again. Calm, controlled, almost like they believed it would fade. But then came the follow-up, and everything changed. 12 days before release, boom! A statement exploded into the public space. Words like deranged conspiracy, pure melodrama, not royal language, not polished diplomacy. This was different. This felt like someone cornered. They attacked the messenger, questioned motives, smashed credibility. But here's the twist. While the world zoomed in, reading every line, one detail stood out like a blinking warning light. They weren't denying the connections. Not directly, not clearly. They were fighting the narrative, but not dismantling the structure behind it. And that's where the story takes a sharp turn. Because this doesn't start in a palace. It starts somewhere colder, more strategic. Toronto. Between 2011 and 2016. A world where access is currency and visibility is everything. Enter Marcus Anderson. On the surface, just a friend, but beneath that, something far more powerful. The gatekeeper of Soho House, a private network built for the elite. No cameras, no leaks, no outsiders. Just influence, moving quietly behind closed doors. And he wasn't just part of that world, he controlled access to it. During this period, something strange started happening. The future Duchess wasn't just working on a TV show anymore. She was traveling, flying business class, attending events that didn't match her public profile, moving in circles that raised eyebrows even among her own colleagues. Questions surfaced. Quietly at first. How? Who's opening these doors? But answers? Locked behind soundproof walls, hidden inside private lounges from Toronto to London. This was a different game. And she was playing it well. Because Soho House isn't just a club. It's a system. A place where billionaires, celebrities, and power brokers meet without consequence. And behind that system, money. Serious money. Names start appearing. One of them, Ron Burkle. A powerful financier. Deep connections. High-level influence. But also a name that surfaced in another, far darker context tied to Giuffre Epstein. Flight logs, contact books, a web of proximity that makes investigators uneasy. Now pause, because here's where things get dangerous. There is no confirmed direct link, no proven involvement, nothing solid enough to stand as fact. But in worlds this small, proximity matters. Overlap matters. Patterns matter. And this pattern, it refuses to disappear. Which brings us to the moment the internet thought it had everything figured out. A yacht, August 2016, Mediterranean waters, a photograph that spread like wildfire in early 2026, faces circled, arrows drawn, claims made. This is it? This is the proof. One name was dragged into it wrongly, completely fabricated. The internet had misidentified someone. The claim collapsed. Case closed? Not quite. Because while the identity claim was false, the photo itself wasn't. It was real. The timing? Real. The people? Real. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the narrative didn't fall apart, it shifted, quietly, almost deliberately. Instead of asking why she was there, the conversation focused on who wasn't. And just like that, the bigger questions slipped through unnoticed. What was really happening in those circles? What connections were being built? What doors were opening and why? Because this wasn't about scandal, not directly. It was about access, strategy, positioning inside a world where visibility is power and proximity is everything. And just as the public started asking those questions, something even bigger loomed on the horizon. Not a rumor, not a book, a courtroom. And what was about to happen there? It had the potential to rip everything open in a way no headline ever could. Because once something is said under oath, it stops being narrative. It becomes truth. Or at least the version no one can control anymore. And this is where the entire story stops feeling like gossip and starts feeling like something far more dangerous. Because what was building behind the scenes wasn't just public speculation, it was a legal storm that had the power to drag private worlds into the harshest spotlight imaginable. And at the center of that storm stood a name that doesn't deal in rumors, doesn't play with narratives, and certainly doesn't bluff: David Boies. When he stepped into the explosive civil case brought by Virginia Giuffre against Prince Andrew, the entire equation changed overnight. Because Boies doesn't chase headlines, he builds cases brick by brick, and when he speaks, it's not speculation, it's strategy. So when he publicly floated the idea of deposing Meghan Markle as a potential witness, it didn't feel like noise. It felt like a warning shot, a calculated move, a signal that the private social circuits of the past, the Toronto years, the London introductions, the quiet meetings, were no longer invisible. They were now relevant, legally relevant. And the reasoning? Cold, precise. She lived in California within jurisdiction. She had, according to him, been in the same extended social sphere as Prince Andrew at certain points in time. That alone was enough to open the door. Not proof, not accusation, but proximity. Again, that word keeps coming back, doesn't it? And in a courtroom, proximity is never just coincidence, it's a thread waiting to be pulled. Imagine what that could have meant. Depositions, questions under oath, names, dates, locations. Suddenly, every quiet connection, every exclusive gathering, every closed-door introduction could have been dragged into public record. No PR filter. No narrative control, just questions and answers that can't be edited. And right when that door was about to open, when the legal machinery was gearing up to move into discovery, something happened that still makes people pause. In early 2022, after a judge refused to dismiss the case, the pressure reached its peak. This was it, the moment where everything could spill. And then silence, not the strategic kind, the abrupt kind, the kind that feels like someone pulled the plug. Because within weeks, the case was settled, reportedly around 12 million pounds. No trial, no depositions, no testimony, just over, clean, fast, final. And just like that, the questions that were about to be asked in the most powerful room possible, the courtroom, were buried. Not answered, not clarified, just gone. And here's the thing about moments like that. They don't erase curiosity. They amplify it. Because when something stops, that suddenly people don't think resolve. They think what was about to come out. And then, as if the story hadn't already taken enough turns, tragedy struck. In 2025, Virginia Giuffre passed away, her voice, arguably one of the most central to that entire era, silenced forever. A memoir followed, words left behind. But the one thing that can't be recreated is cross-examination. The opportunity for those overlapping worlds to be questioned under oath disappeared the moment that settlement was signed. And yet the questions didn't disappear. They multiplied. Because outside the courtroom, something else was shifting, quietly at first, then all at once. The media, long bound by an unspoken line they wouldn't cross, started to move. And when that line broke, it didn't crack. It shattered. Because for years, there was an invisible rule. Criticize the fashion. Question the spending. Debate the interviews. But don't go there. Don't touch the yacht rumors. Don't connect those dots. Too risky. Too explosive. Too dangerous. Until suddenly, it wasn't off limits anymore. When Julie Burchell wrote her piece in The Spectator, she didn't hint. She didn't dance around it. She said it plainly, directly. How many yachts? Double digits? Triple? No coded language. No safe distance. Just a statement dropped into a publication known for its legal caution. And that moment changed everything. Because it wasn't just what was said, it was what happened next. Or rather, what didn't. No lawsuit. No legal retaliation. No aggressive statement. Silence. The same couple couple that had taken media outlets to court over letters, privacy, and photos chose not to engage with this at all. And in a world of high-stakes PR, silence isn't neutral. It's strategic. It's selective. It speaks. Because when you fight everything except one specific allegation, people don't ignore that gap. They stare directly into it. And that's where the story begins to twist into something even more modern. Something the traditional royal system was never designed to handle. The internet, not headlines, not newspapers, but digital memory. Because while official narratives were being polished, something else was happening in the background, quietly, relentlessly. A network of independent researchers, digital archaeologists started digging, not for rumors, for receipts, archived blogs, deleted posts, metadata, forgotten tags, pieces of a digital footprint that was supposed to be cleaned, erased, controlled. But the problem with the internet, it doesn't forget. Tools like the Wayback Machine turned time into evidence. Old versions of pages, past associations, locations, circles. Slowly, a pattern started forming, not one explosive revelation, but dozens of small ones, each connecting back to the same elite environments, the same networks, the same access points that predated the official narrative. And the more those pieces surfaced, the more the gap widened between the curated story and the documented trail. Because the image presented was simple: an outsider, a blind date, a fairy tale entry into royalty. But the digital record, it tells a more complex story. One of navigation, strategy, familiarity with the very system she was later portrayed as entering for the first time. And every time the response came, labeling it conspiracy, dismissing it as noise, it only triggered something else. The Streisand effect. The harder something is pushed down, the faster it spreads, the louder it becomes. And now, here we are, watching what feels like a slow motion collapse of control, not a dramatic explosion. Something quieter, more unsettling, a drip, drip, drip of information that refuses to go away. Because this was never just about one photo, or one book, or one courtroom moment. It's about the architecture behind it all, the gatekeepers, the access, the carefully constructed image versus the messy, complicated reality underneath. And the biggest shift? Control is no longer centralized. It doesn't sit with PR teams or legal departments anymore. It's scattered across millions of screens. Archived, shared, revisited, questioned. The narrative isn't owned anymore. And that's what makes this moment so volatile. Because the questions are no longer whispered. They're public, persistent, and growing. What really happened between 2011 and 2016? Who opened the doors? What connections mattered and why? And perhaps the most uncomfortable one of all, if everything is as straightforward as it was presented, then why does the silence feel so carefully placed? This story isn't ending, it's evolving. And the deeper it goes, the harder it becomes to separate what was hidden from what was simply never meant to be looked at this closely.